I want to talk about my grandfather, William Oliver Harper. Olie, as they called him, was born in 1895, and shortly afterwards, uh, his grandfather, Marion McDonald Harper, took the whole family from Shelby County to Oklahoma. They settled around Spiro, Oklahoma. I don't know if they were in the first, or I mean, the last land grab, but it was about that time. And anyway, the whole family went out there and they settled, and uh, that's about the best I can say about that. But anyway, Ollie's father died in 1907. Jasper Harper died in 1907, and his mother and sister and he came back to Shelby County. Uh, I think they settled around Benson. Uh, Ollie was a machine gunner in World War I in an infantry battalion. I think he was one of Pershing's troops, doughboy that is. After the war, he married Lilla Bell Abbott, my grandmother, and they had 4 daughters. My mother was the oldest. The youngest one, Willie Fay, was born in the late 30s. I don't know exactly what date. I could look it up, but I don't have it off the tip of my tongue. But after Willie Fay was born, they separated. Uh, I was like 12 years old when he died, and I remember him well. And I remember them being separated. They never got divorced. Matter of fact, they're buried side by side at Edgemont Cemetery in Anniston. They kind of passed each other coming and going, but they never lived together and they never divorced. I never did understand that relationship, but uh, I'm satisfied to say that there was not a third party involved. Well, my grandfather spent his last years in a corn crib. That sounds funny, don't it? Corn crib was a log, kind of a log cabin that some farmer had used as to store corn in, and he had fixed the thing up with cardboard lining on the inside and made it quite comfortable for himself. He lived alone, and they say he lived mostly off wild game. And anyway, that's the story. I remember him as a as a kind of an outdoorsman, and he taught me how to make a bow and arrow. I mean, he taught me how to select wood, and how to season it, and how to shave it down and make a bow and an arrow. He would hold over a fire, and as straight as twig he could find, hold it over a fire to make as straight as arrow as he could. And he would use a lid off a tin can to make a broadhead point. And he taught me how to stalk game through the woods. How to walk through the woods without breaking twigs and stumbling over leaves and stuff like that. So anyway, that's who he was to me. But he was also a miser. Uh, I guess today you would call it pathological miser. Back then we just called it darn stingy. I remember when Mom and Dad one summer they ran a little mom and pop gas and grocery store on top of Hardy Hill on Highway 78 west of Anniston. No, I'm sorry, that's east of Anniston. Anyway, uh, they had the living quarters in the back of the store. That's what, and my grandfather would come and stay with us occasionally. He'd stay 2 or 3 weeks at a time, mostly during summertime, and he'd actually walk from Benson and to Anniston, and my daddy would take him back on a return trip. But anyway, that one morning he got up and walked through the store and walked down the hill half a mile to Mr. Forsyth's store to buy a plug of brown mule chewing tobacco. Well, my mother quizzed him about that, and he said, "Well, Mr. Forsyth sells it 2 cents cheaper than what you sell it." that's the kind of fellow he was. Uh, we lived on Jones Circle, and he'd come stay with us in the summertime, and he liked to go to town. We could have caught the transit bus right there in front of my dad's house for 20 cents. That's 10 cents each. And I went all over town. Got a transfer to come back home, but that was too much for him. We could have walked down the street to town, but that was just too public for him. He liked to use the railroad track. The railroad track run right behind Dad's house, and he'd get on that railroad track, him and me, and we'd walk to town through Blue Mountain, and you know, kind of a couple of rough neighborhoods, but that didn't seem to bother him too much. We'd come into town on the back side by the railroad yards. Uh, he didn't go to town to shop. He just went to just kind of spend some time. And all the time he was there, he'd be looking on the ground and on the floor around the cash registers in the dime stores for coins that people had dropped. Uh, and you know, occasionally he'd find one. But anyway, I loved the old man. And, as peculiar as he was good to me. And I remember the better times with him, and I don't remember any bad times. But you know, I guess that's about it. Good night.